Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here with you. My name's Linda, and today we're going to do 6 tips on should I stay or should I leave when it comes to narcissism. And we found over the past 5 days that we can't reason with unreasonable people, and that's the essence of what will happen no matter your relationship, whether it's working, personal, family. We cannot reason with unreasonable people. And a friend of mine gave me feedback this morning about how at work she had that issue with somebody, and how we can know that they're unreasonable even though initially we think they're asking for our opinion and value it, is that over time, because you can't just go, oh, that person's narcissistic just from knowing them 5 seconds. They may ask for our opinion, but then you come to understand that they just walk straight over the top of you, ignore it and go and do what they wanted to do anyhow, okay? There's a real sense that we don't belong as part of whatever the, whatever the connection is, whether it's business or personal. We know that they don't value our opinion, they don't value our input into the scenario. And so that's a real key criteria to identify somebody who's narcissistic, that no matter what you say, there's no reasoning with them. Okay, so I've got our tips for today. And so with tip number 1, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship, especially in family as well, Thank you, girls. Thanks for your feedback. And it's lovely to have you with me, to be honest. It's great. I now know that the app's working today, which I did a lot of work last night to make sure it would. So I'm like, phew. Okay, so tip number 1, we don't want to make a quick decision. So I think it's the tortoise and the hare scenario. Who won the race in the end? The tortoise. Okay? The hare ran out of puff. And so we need to be the tortoise in this situation and really sit back and have good reflection in our heart as to what's happening here, because there will be wounds on our side as well. Okay? Tip number 2, make decisions going ahead that build into your life. Okay? So what I mean by that is you can't make a decision and communicate your decision to the narcissist, because they've already shown you that they won't listen, and they will be unreasonable. They will tell you you're wrong. It's very oppressive, basically. One thing I learned a couple of decades ago is that people can mask their behaviour. So when I was married to the kid's dad, and look, I loved him very, very much, okay? I knew that he was changing his behaviour on the outside, but nothing had changed his heart. So if they don't seek help, professional help, and they don't get care for themselves as well, they need care, they need more care than we can give them, then their heart's not going to change, and they can modify their behaviour, is probably a better word than must. They modify their behaviour to suit the circumstances, and then when they're out of your sight, the anger appears again, okay? So when you have to make decisions that build, it means the decisions you're going to make now for your life, for your work life, your family life. For me, it was for myself and my children. I had to sit down, not make a quick decision, and really think about how it would affect everyone, what I could do, what I would need in place for myself, what I would need in place for my children to grow up into healthy young adults, like emotionally healthy young adults, which for me, coming from my background, that's what I wanted for my children. Because when we've raised emotionally healthy young adults, everything that comes along in life, just they can cope. They know how to seek help. They know how to communicate with one another. They know that through everything we stick together. Okay, so I had to make a lot of these decisions, and what I did was, remember a few days ago we talked about journaling? Well, I had one of these big books, except it wasn't multicoloured, okay? And I would open a page and I would write down each section. So, for my kids, I'd have to write down, would they stay at the same school? What would we do? How would that happen? And how will it all unfold? So that's making sensible decisions about what's going to happen. You're not going to do anything in a rush, okay? But you're going to start taking care of you and the situation. And with my friend's situation this morning, for her it was at work, and what she needed to do, she could speak to her husband and a few other things that she could do for herself, and in the end, from memory, she actually moved on from that job, because you know that no matter what you do, nothing will change. Okay? So tip number 3, sit down and pray, meditate. Okay, so we do our 5-second breathing, 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. And the more you practice that, the more you become aware of slowing your thoughts down, slowing your heart down, really getting down into the center of your soul. Thanks, Chloe. You still here? I actually glued them together. So we come in, so our senses are all around the outside. We've got our physical body, and we've got our soul into our spirit, and into the pure spirit that's within us, okay? So what we want to do with our breath is come down deeper into these places, fill ourselves with life-sustaining breath. And we want to do it slowly and intentionally. And we want to sit in that space and get a real sense of where our intuition is saying, what's the one next step? So when you're under that much emotional pressure, and it is a lot of pressure, you're going to feel that you can't do it. You're going to feel very emotional, like you just want to cry all the time. Remember, that's going back to a few days ago when we recognised that we lose our dream, okay? And you want to just go, what's the one next step? Now, if you did that scenario once every day, you would build into you a strength to know what the one next step is, and to look around each day and see just the one next step. And as you build on those one next step, it builds a whole staircase for you to walk up and onwards with. I heard a lady say the other day she had to make a decision whether she wanted to be a spouse or a parent. And that nailed it for me. So sometimes we have to ask, do we want to be a spouse or a parent? I wanted to be a parent more than I wanted to keep my kids in a negative situation. And now that they're grown up, and even though we went through really hard times, but because I made decisions that build, we kept building, okay? We kept building through all the challenges that we had and faced. They now are thankful, especially my eldest son will tell me, I'm thankful that you put in all the hard work that you did, Mum, okay? So in making these decisions, you're looking at a long-term plan, you're not looking at anything short-term, okay? Communication. You'll have to make a decision how you communicate with the narcissist, okay? I know for me, with the children's father, we could just talk and he'd just go, I'd just go and do what we had to do. There was no active participation. However, from my second husband, there was the oppression was so strong for me, okay, that I ended up in a situation where we were living in the same house, but I would just email him, because it was the only way I knew that what he said, because he'd have to email me back, that I knew that I could sit down and reread what he'd said and consider what he was saying before I replied. So it depends. And see, I was very unwell. I had a full-time carer at the time, so I had to take these things slowly. And in the end, it worked out better that I did take things slowly. Okay, so, and if it's family, Look, it's heart-wrenching when it's family. It really, really is, because we come from a space where we really just believe that love will conquer all, that if we can sit down and talk it out, have our different points of view and agree to disagree, then we can move forward. A narcissist doesn't see it that way. I remember when I was going through my marriage breakup, he said, can't we just sit down and talk this out? But I said no, because he'd already shown me that the minute we started talking, he wanted to railroad everything, okay? And so I knew for my own emotional health I had to say no. Now, you may find that you have a forward and back, and that's okay, because when you are doing your prayer and meditation, you're building into steps forward. Remember, you're building. So the forward and back will eventually stop. Okay, as long as you keep building into and making good decisions, going backwards and forwards is going to stop. Okay. Tip number 6, support. Honestly, you are going to need support. You will feel that you are alone. And I know everybody's different, but I'm aware from the society that we live in that you will be judged, especially if you are a person of faith and you need to make this decision that you have to go. Unless you go to a really good church like I do, where they understand the dynamics, that sometimes you can be beating your head against a brick wall too often, and they will support you, and they support both people no matter what. Okay? Now, it's hard. It's hard to reach out when, for me, it was hard to reach out from the perspective that I felt like such a failure. Heck, second marriage breakup, what have I done? Okay, but I had no idea about any of this information at the time. I actually came across it probably a year later. There was little bits on the internet back then, but not much, not like there is now. Okay, but you are going to need support. You will need professional help